Okay. Hey, everybody. Hi, how's it going? Welcome in. We're about to get this party started. Yahoo! Okay, so happy to see you all in here. Welcome in. We got a lot of prelude to this meeting, so I'll try and keep my talking as brief as possible. Yeah. We're going to start with the board elections because that's probably going to take up the most time of our introductions. If you're new here, welcome in. Thank you for bearing with us. So as y'all might know, I hope by now, today is our election meeting. We host the elections over a three-month meeting-long process. This one is the big one. This is where our candidates are going to be invited up to speak, give statements, field questions, politic in any which way they feel just, and we'll be tabulating the votes. As a reminder, that information can all be found on our Discord immediately in the announcements channel. The most recent message has the links for the pre-written statements that our candidates have given, as well as the link for voting. You are able to vote, submit your votes. You can edit your votes at any point up until 8 p.m., which is when we will be cutting the voting off. And we will tabulate the votes, and hopefully we'll be able to announce that by the end of the Gamedev meeting. It is in our Discord, which can be found at, if you're not in our Discord, igdatc.org/discord. Yeah. Announcements.
There's also a direct, which is igda.org/governance.
Yes, that. Exactly. And that will bring you to every link of relevancy to this election and previous elections. So, our nominees are, and I'll run through the list of names and then we'll kind of go through, I think, just in this order. Invite you up, say what you want to say. So our list of nominees are L. Bergmas, Robert Frost III, Beth Korth, who is an incumbent board member, Mark LaCroix, who is an incumbent board member, Joanna May, and Eric Onerheim. And for those of you who have voted already, some important information if you haven't seen on the Discord already, Kieran Anthony has withdrawn from consideration for the race. We're keeping him on the ballot just because it will completely mess with voting math for how many votes each person gets if we do it after people have already voted. So we're just going to leave him on the board, but keep that in mind. Yeah. Protest vote. Yes. So, exactly. So, Elle, if you would like to join up here, and I will shimmy out of the way.
Thank you, Sam, and everyone. I am L. Bergmas. I have served on the board of IGDA TC before during the lockdown years. Part of a very talented group of people that I would hope to at least kind of measure up to. I don't know, I've been out of the position for a year, and I find myself in a very different place. And last year it was kind of overwhelming and that kind of stuff. But just lately I've been kind of inspired to get back, get involved, and contribute everything I can here again. In terms of specific policy ideas, the main one that I have, fairly straightforward, but we have a nice Discord that was set up specifically for use for Global Game Jam for 2025. And, of course, since we have the server, we're probably going to be using it for Global Game Jam 2026 and so forth. We've got decent setups there and whatnot, but I think, because one of the things that really did inspire me, one of the things that actually got me thinking, hey, maybe I should be running again, was, participating in that. I have mostly done Game Jam games over the years, a few projects in college, that kind of thing, but the fact is that I haven't done much lately until this time. I got together with a friend and then someone who, with no offense meant to him, he's a great artist, but he just happened to be one of the other people who couldn't find a group. And, you know, I just really enjoyed myself. And it got me back into it, and I have actually started working both on a new jam project with the same team, as well as on a longer-term thing that I've kind of had floating nebulously in my mind for ages. And so I'd like to start holding more of these for other people. And not just GGJ, but a lot of variants. Longer jams, shorter jams, jams based on a theme, jams based on an engine, jams based on a genre, to try and just, I mean, show the variety of what's out there, to get people interested in trying things that they haven't before, that kind of stuff. And I don't know that everyone will necessarily have the same revelation as did with me, but I think it's a good start. And so that's what I'd want to take charge of. And I guess that's it.
Yeah, I won't. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Robert Frost III. You can just call me Rob. That's my stage name. Not really, it's my real name. So I am Rob, and I have been in this community for a long time, probably since like 2015. Kind of had a little bit of a falling out during the pandemic, like most people. But now I'm back and really excited to be, contributing like this. So first and foremost, I am a sound designer and a composer for games. Been doing that for about 10 years now. And I also run a company called Space Mace. We made a game called Joggernauts. It's out on the Switch, and you don't need to do that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I feel like I feel like I have a lot of experience, especially with just the doing the thing. We've done a lot of traveling. I mean, not so recently, obviously, because of everything's just different, obviously, post pandemic. But I learned a shit ton before that, and I think I just want a reason to kind of organize these thoughts and into something that like could be useful for us. Not to mention, the biggest reason I wanted to do this is I really want to make a special interest group for sound, particularly something that is specifically for development, not for fandom, not for game audio, VGM music, but for actually developing games, using sound, making music for games, making sound for games, and then and just like kind of what it means to the process. I see a lot of people and a lot of clients that I have. It's sometimes very difficult. It's to just get just trying to have the conversation about sound. A lot of people don't know how to talk about it. So I like kind of want to build a literacy, like bring up the literacy. And there's like everybody can make music. Everybody can talk about music. Everybody can talk about sound. Everybody can talk about games. It's just like having that confidence to just like say it and do it. And I kind of want to just foster that kind of mentality, like just more doing stuff and then I'm bombing right now. I don't know. Like I just want to do this. I just think I'd be good at it. And I've like I said, I've been doing games for a while now, and I have a lot of information that I want to compile and then bring to the group in different ways. So yeah, I know it's kind of vague, but I'm hoping you will trust me in this role and to also just lift up the voices of all the other, like, sound and music. It's not the only thing in games, obviously, but that was pretty crazy. It's a good sound effect. It's a great sound effect. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, all the things in games make the things that make a game, you know? Like, it's not just about doing sound. It's not just about doing music. It's not just about art. It's not just about code. It's like how all those things come together. And the more experience I've had in this industry, the more I've leaned on the idea of game design and things like that to inspire me musically. So it's like taking my music hat off and putting my game development hat on, and like saying to myself, yes, I can be a game developer. So I think that a lot of people that might come in here and want to do music or do music and sound, they might not understand, you know, the difference between, you know, doing sound for games and just doing sound in general. And when I say sound, I'm just kind of blending them all together. So what I'm really getting at here is I just want to, like, educate, build my own education up. I want to be part of the community more. I feel like I really fell out with the pandemic, and it was hard on me, and it's still pretty hard on me. So I would really like to come back in a way that I can be helpful and actually excited, because I just am an ideas person. It's just kind of what I do. And I want to bring more ideas to the table and actually follow through with some stuff. So, not saying that we haven't. I'm just saying I would like to do that too. Okay, yeah, I'm done.
Okay, so I'm Beth Korth. I think a lot of people know me, and for those of you that don't, I'll give you my like game dev cred and all that. So I was the writer producer on Verdant Skies, another well-beloved locally made game. And I've been on the board since 2015, I think I say. Before it was a board, before a board existed, before we embraced the rules that IGDA parent org has for us. So I've seen a lot, and I've done a lot. My passions are for the narrative sphere, so I like to do a lot of writing, like environmental design, consulting, stuff like that. I like kids to get involved in game development, so I did Game Dev Day at the Works Museum for several years, pre-pandemic when everything fell apart. And we had, I think, like 300 students come through and kind of learn about all the aspects of game dev, which I think Scott was just snickering. Were you recalling the horrible Game Dev Day at the Works? No. Okay. Scott was one of the people who volunteered. So that's one of the things I did the Midwest Game Jam for a couple of years also before the pandemic and before I had a kid. So I've done stuff. And right now I'm the chair, and I like to lead the board to hopefully embrace anybody who wants to make games or participate in making games. So I'm just planning on continuing to do what I've been doing. And if you like where it's going, that's great. And if you don't, then you should vote for somebody else. Thanks.
Okay, brief time away from switching the camera back and forth. I'm Mark Croy. I've been on the board for a good long while as well. And as a representative of the current regime, I want to endorse Beth. Because how could we ever without? I worked on a game called Widget Satchel. It's a big game that I put out with a bunch of folks from the community. Yes, please clap for me too. I also co-host Nice Games Club, which we started here as a way to initially get a lot of developers showcasing their work and interviewing. It's grown to an international audience, and we still bring in local folks pretty often. So that's a big part of my participation in the community outside of the board. On the board, my big focus is sustainability and like just trying to make our efforts go as far as possible. For a long, long time, and any little organization is like this, you spend a half your time just like rebuilding the scaffolding from the last time because you forgot how the instructions or it crumbled or whatever. And like, there is no way to avoid that. We're still doing that. Like, that's still probably a third of our time now, which is a huge thing. But I think that's been a big focus of mine, so we can be more impactful with the work we do. And my time on the board, I think, has corresponded with a good increase of that impact. And so I'm pretty proud of that. What I've done for the board specifically, I host Twin Cities Playtest. I help put on a lot of events from a technical side. I'm always back there running stuff. I'm hosting a lot of stuff here at Noble Robot, which if I'm not elected, I will continue to do. So don't worry about that as a reason to vote for me. And then also Beth and I and Trent and Sam, we started Nice Games Alliance, a 501c nonprofit to support the work that the board does. So the board will be elected, the board will determine the programming, but Nice Games Alliance is now like an actual real live organization to support that work. And so we're not splitting our time, but we're growing our ambitions. And so, you know, whether you vote us out or not, we're going to be involved. But we're going through a transition period, so that's why I want to run again. Is I want to see this through. One day I will tell you to not vote for me any longer because I will not have time and you won't need me. And I don't know that you do yet. That's up to you to decide. The two big questions that I want to help tackle in the next term is the big question about our identity, especially as it relates to the parent org. We've talked a lot about that at meetings. Sam has done a great job leading those discussions. So clap for Sam, please. We've been having those discussions because when the new board meets, we're going to, as best we can, answer that question. And I'm going to try to come up with some actionable ways, whatever we decide. I want to come up with a couple of like, this is what we do if this is what we decide. This is what we do if this is what we decide. A lot of us are like of two minds about it, and I'm definitely that case. So I just want to make sure that when we decide to move forward, that we can hit the ground running. So I'm really invested in that. And then the other thing that it's been a big thing for me the whole time I've been on the board is increasing our diversity efforts. I think we've done an okay job of that, but I'm also not ready to be proud of our efforts fully there. I think there's a lot of ways to go, especially when it comes to who our program reaches. I think we can all look around in this room and know that like we're not, you know, we're just shy of the stereotypical group, right? And there's no shame in that. But we can do more, we can do better, we can have more voices, because the last thing I really want to do, especially as we grow our ambitions as an organization, is I want more people to bring more interesting ideas, like including Rob's idea for doing you know, audio meetups. Like that's the kind of thing that's specialized that like the whole board doesn't need to run, that someone on the board or a volunteer can manage, and we can get a more diverse, not just types of people, but types of ideas and types of things, because that will attract more types of people. And that, I think, has borne out in our efforts in the past, and I want to continue doing that. And so if you elect me, I promise that more people will be around to make more decisions, because that is how we grow this thing. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Hello. I think I know a lot of you. A lot of you don't think I know, so if you'll let me introduce myself. I am Joanna May. I work as an engineering manager by day. There's a seat here if you want to sit down.
Okay,
Yeah.
No one would have judged you for cutting it at any point. Welcome in.
Yeah, it's tiny. So that's yeah. So I work as an engineering manager by day. And, you know, by night, I run the Godot C# grassroots ecosystem and community. Thanks, Josh. So obviously, one of the things that we need is like bigger venue space. You're feeling that right now. People are too shy to sit down. I know I'm the same way. And so that's something, you know, that we can reach out to local businesses and we can figure that out. Another thing is, if you think about any good memory that you have with IGDA, it's probably has nothing to do with the parent org, and it probably has everything to do with the people that are around you. And so I think we need to start weaning ourselves off of IGDA and just leveraging it for the brand and nothing else, and focusing instead on what Mark and Beth have been working hard on, which is the Nice Games Alliance. There's a big bright future with that. There's even more potential for bigger opportunities, such as creating local indie development funds to actually fund some work. But that will not happen without a lot of business relationships in the community, and then reaching out and forging that side of the organization. And so that's something I'm very passionate about. And if elected, I'll be happy to give back and serve because I've had a great time here with you all. So thank you.
It's gonna be hard to follow. I should have prepared more. So my name is Eric. I became active with the IGDA like over the last year or so, and I've made a lot of friends in the last year or so here. It's the most friends and enemies. Most of them named Scott. Ambiguous category, frenemy. But like it's the most friends I've ever made in like a long time. So like I think like the last time I made this many friends was in college. So and those were like I think about those times very fondly. I've had a lot of fun and a lot of really like stimulating conversations with a lot of people in a lot of different fields that I don't work in as a day-to-day programmer. So it's been really fun, and it's really kind of stirred my passion to actually ship something. So my plans this year are very ambitious. So I'll be, you know, I started a business, I'm shipping a game, and I'm running. Yeah, hopefully shipping a game, knock on wood. Yeah, this isn't wood, so you can't, there we go, there we go. So the idea is to actually make money. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, by day, I'm a software engineer. By night, I am stealing Joanna's line, and I build the Excalibur JS game engine. It's 2D, thank you. 2D TypeScript game engine for the web, and it's got no dependencies. We built everything ourselves, so I've done a little bit of everything, for better or for worse. Mostly worse. Better? But, so I'm really excited about like two things. One, bringing more people in to the game dev sphere in the Midwest, because I feel like we have a lot of like talented people and a lot of people like in my local locus, even at work or in people I talk to that aren't part of the IGDA that want to make games. I feel like there's a big opportunity to just grow the community. So I'm talking about like students, talking about professionals. And I don't know about a lot of you, I got into programming because I was like, you know what would be great is if I can make video games. And then I never did until I was well past school and been focused on it ever since. Doing a lot of jam games, doing a lot of stuff for over the last decade. And I really want to bring more people in. Specifically, like, I am passionate about web dev. I know some people here, that's a curse word. But you know, a lot of the concepts apply. So that's one, bringing more people in, reaching out to students. Like, we have a lot of really awesome programs, like the U of M has a lot of really awesome students. And I might still know professors there, but a lot of them are really cool. And I have an in to the administration because my wife works there. So yeah, I went to school there too, so it's okay. I'm an alumni. I don't pay any dues. I'm a fake alumni. I don't pay them any money. They got plenty for my student loans. Anyway, and then the other thing I'm really passionate about is education. So like a lot of folks here, like leveling up and providing education for people that are interested in other fields. So things that I'm really passionate about are everything, but like especially programming and bringing like doing like workshop type things, building like a corpus of knowledge that we can like have video workshops of like, how do you do shaders? Like, how do you do this or that in Godot? How do you do this or that in Unity? How do you do pixel art? How do you make audio? You know, do like long form workshops that people can attend more than just like an hour-long, 2-hour-long presentation, and actually like spend time actually doing the thing and learning that. We can record that. And it's something that I really enjoy. Like, I don't know if any of you have gone to Front End Masters. They're downtown and they do like a day-long taping, and they'll go through, like, get an expert on a topic and just go through. So that's an item that I think we could really like leverage. So those are like my two big things. Let me look at my notes that I have here. But one thing that kind of goes along with that is I think game development is by far the most difficult piece of software to make. Like, and like the most like disproportionately valued. you know, like okay, there's games down here, and then there's like text boxes over data in Excel, and you're like, wow, this is very different. So I think there's a lot we can do to like make that a little easier for everyone. And that's part of what we do in Excalibur is we're really trying to make it democratize game dev is like one of our missions is to get as many people making games as possible, including non-programmers. Like the eventual goal is to have people that want to make games, whether or not they're a programmer or not. So I think that's my spiel. I like all of you. Oh, wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much again for all of our wonderful candidates who are campaigning to improve our community. Yeah. Round of why not? Why not? We love clapping. So as a reminder, everybody in the community has 4 available votes that you may dole out however you choose. They're not ranked in any way, shape, or form. If anybody has any questions, again, about finding information for where to vote, reach out to pretty much anybody else in the crowd. I think you'll be able to find someone who knows what they're talking about. And I think without further ado, we'll move on to... Yep, 45 minutes.
Then there's vote A, B, C, D.
Yep.
Is that in correct order?
Not at all. It is completely randomized. Each person will see a different order of candidates. So actually, I'll give it just like a quick minute before I continue yapping for people to get out their phones now and put in votes if they haven't already.
But the option A, option B, option C, option D, those aren't weighted. They're
Not at all.
not.
Correct. Yes.
Next year we need voting stickers.
Oh, with the IGDA logo on. Yeah. Oh, damn. I might work on that. That's a good idea. Mm. Oh, I mean, yeah, that would be perfect. appreciate you and would love to see you here, not only in this meeting, good job on making it, but on many future meetings. If you're curious about our policy, that's at igdatc.org/policies. I'm going to wait on the board member slide because I want to also give a thanks to our current board members who. Hey, we're back! Thank you, Mark.
Don't get too excited.
Incredible.
We're back in the room. That's
Okay.
we have people watching online. They
Perfect.
count too.
You're so right. You're
They
so
could
right.
vote, by the way. On
Yes, if you're online right now, put in a vote. So this is our current board and has been our current board for the last year. So some of these faces, Zach Went and David Mann, are not running for re-election. So I'd like to give a round of applause to them very quickly. As well as to Beck and Mark, who are running for the board. And we will see once we tabulate the results what happens. But regardless, we'd like to thank everybody for their generous time and energy donated to the organization. Yeah. We love clapping.
I think that is like the organization's longest serving.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
You haven't been?
Nope, Zach was on before me.
Oh, wow. Okay. But worry not, he will still be a part of the community, still hosting our VR HCI meetup as a volunteer. So we thank him very much for all that he does there. We also have volunteers, and I've finally updated the slides to reflect the faithfulness of our volunteers. If you are a current volunteer or have done things that are within the realm of being a volunteer for this organization, above and beyond just showing up and attending the events, I encourage you to reach out to one of the board members and send us a headshot so that we can get you put up on here so that people can see you and appreciate you. If you're interested in doing anything as a volunteer, talk to one of us. The options are limitless. We have regular events. Most of them are every Wednesday from 6:30 to 9:30. First one is Devs Play Games, which is a socializing and board game focused meetup. Second one, you made it here, is the Gamedev meeting, industry and community presentations where we all speak with each other. Twin Cities Playtest, where developers can share in development games and people in person can play those in development games. People can share games from anywhere. MNVR and HCI is our VR HCI special interest group. Now in West End, there's been an address change, so make sure you're following the most up-to-date info on addresses if you attend that. And we have special interest events on Saturdays, like our Women in Games gathering, focused as a non-social or a non-agenda event for networking and socializing for anybody who identifies with the label or term woman. If you're interested in creating a new event or running an existing event, let us know. That's something a volunteer does, but the way to be a volunteer is to say you want to do something. Twin Cities Playtest, I just mentioned that one. It's next week. If you have a game in development, you should bring it next week. We would love to see your game because you get to get more eyes on your game, more exposure. You also get feedback on your current game because Dale, our wonderful volunteer, will be wandering around with the mic, interviewing people, quizzing people, and giving feedback on the games. Thank you, Dale. If you have questions or you're interested in it, DM Mark LaCroix at Mark LaCroix in our Discord to get that ball rolling, or post about it in the Twin Cities Playtest channel in our Discord. And if you forget about it last minute, you want to show up, you can bring it in day of at any point, and we'll find a space for you. It just might not be guaranteed to have a time slot set out for it in the schedule for interviewing and being live streamed on our YouTube page. Which is why it behooves you, if you're a remote presenter, like perhaps our friends from Ohio who are joining us to speak tonight, if you're interested, you can send a build here, and the feedback and play testing of it will be live streamed. I think that's it there. We got plenty of different servers, or plenty of different channels you can interact with on here, all types of disciplines, skills, things about each of our events. Check them out. Use them. Have fun. We also have ways you can support IGDATC. We have a merch page at igdatc.org/merch. If you're interested in representing the community, thank you very much. Any other? Thank you very much. Get some merch there. It's a beautiful logo that we will keep no matter our trajectory as an organization, I believe.
I mean,
Yeah. That's my stance on it. And you can also donate your game's art if you're interested. Revenue will go then to support your community. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know. Also, a quick shout out, thank you to our sponsors. Noble Robot hosted this space, a wonderful co-working studio. If you're interested, talk to Mark or check out noblerobot.com/office, and REM5 Studios at rem5studios.com, which is a full-service immersive experience agency for VR, AR, and MR. Thank you very much. As far as internal announcements, if you're interested, if you've gotten anything of value out of this community, nicegames.org is now the avenue through which you can financially support it. You can donate any amount you want. Yeah, one time or recurring. All tax deductible, and you will receive a tax receipt with any donation you make. The money goes directly to the organization, not the people running it, and can legally only be used to further its mission. So these are the ways we'll be getting things like the funds for hosting event spaces, food, workshops, things as such. So if that's something you're interested in, do whatever you feels right to you. And if you know of any other adjacent local organizations, one of our big goals this year is going to be like outreach to other communities in our general sphere. Tell us about them. That QR code will lead you to a form where you can just put in information about adjacent organizations. We've got some that we're in touch with already, such as Nice Moves, IXDF. But if there are others that you are aware of that may have people who have similar skill sets or interests, by all means, let us know. Board member elections, we did that. Go team. Community plugs. If anybody has something they'd like to share, step right up. It can be anything on that list or something else entirely.
Okay, I'm not gonna try that. Hi. So next month, there's going to be a video game and music convention in Minnesota called VGM Con. So if you like either of those things, you should consider attending. There will also be some locally developed games being presented at this event. My game, Dice Tower, being one of them. So if you're interested, thank you. So yeah, if this is something that's up your alley, tickets are still available. So go get them and then come show up. I don't know for sure, but if you go on to the IGDA Discord and ask about that, someone will point you to the VGM Discord, and you can figure it out. Yeah.
See if my slide's in here. It is. There's a mega game coming up. Another one. This one's actually pretty good. It's in, yeah. Yeah, the other one was fun too, but yeah. It's on May 18th, which is a Sunday. This one's pretty cool. It's sort of like a dark fantasy. Bunch of town, like the town is trying to work together to like fight the darkness or something. I don't know. It's a cool mega game. If you don't know what a mega game is, it's kind of a cross between like a role-playing game and a board game that you play with like a ton of people. This one I believe is at least 42 players, plus some moderators on top of that. If you have not experienced one, you should check this one out because it's one of the better ones. So yeah. QR code if anybody wants to snap it, but otherwise just go to midwestmegagames.com.
And I believe it's also a link was just posted to it in our Discord.
Yes.
In, like, the
I think Lucas did that. Yeah. Cool. I don't know what's next. Oh yeah, that.
All right.
Hi, my name is Stephen McGregor. Okay. Thanks. I do a podcast called Nice Games Club with Mark and Lydia, who's not here, I don't think. And we talk about games and game development. We've been doing this for over 8 years. And we have a website. You can go to nicegames.club to listen to our episodes. We have almost 400 episodes at this point, so like there's a lot to listen to. A lot of yeah, a lot of folks here have been on this podcast. If you're interested in being on the podcast, let us know too, because we can maybe fit you into our schedule. There's a new episode every week. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say.
Much better on the mic.
I'm much better on the mic. Yeah. What's that? That's a good question.
You can find out all about that if you
Yes.
listen to the latest episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if I wanted to support like local game dev podcasts?
You could go to patreon.com/nicegamesclub and yeah, help us out there. If you want to give us feedback, you can go to nicegames.club/feedback. If you want to get a t-shirt, you can go to nicegames.club/merch. You can also get a pillow. We just added a pillow recently. So I think there's an example of a pillow somewhere in this office. Yes. So yeah, that's that. I do have another thing I wanted to announce that is not related to Nice Games Club. Yes. But so I work for Future Club, which is a remote co-op studio, and we are running a Kickstarter to make this game called Part-Time Hero. It is a deck building game where you are playing as a magical girl, trying to fight crime, but also pay bills and rent. If you're interested in that at all, I'll be posting a link to that Kickstarter. It starts tomorrow. I will be posting a link to that Kickstarter later today, later tonight. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's me.
All right. Anybody else got anything for the good of the cause? Going once, going twice, not going thrice because we're running low on time. Jam and Jam is my thing. This, if you're interested in a 48-hour asset jam, a little smaller than a game jam, just focusing on one asset, which can be anything related to your skill set or discipline, a prop, sprite, audio, shader, script, things like that. We'll have that based on a theme determined each month. First full weekend of each month from 6 p.m. Central Time to Friday to 6 p.m. Central Time Sunday with a closing showcase at 7 p.m. Here are some of our last month's winners. The theme was time, so a bunch of people did watches and things like that. And there's a QR code to join our Discord. Also, if you're interested in joining, just pester me about it. Okay. Thank you so much. Without further ado, we will now enthusiastically switch our setup over to our very patient, very kind, very charitable Melty Clown Studio friends for the dangers of development without direction.
All right. Hello, everybody. Super excited to be here. This is really cool. This is the dangers of development without direction. This is kind of a scary story about what happened to us while we were making our game, Bonnie's Bakery. Real quick, who am I? My name's Titus. I'm one of the co-founders of Melty Clown Studio. You might have heard of me as Gamedev. This is how I appear in all of our promotional marketing stuff from the company. I was primarily the coder for the 3D sections of Bonnie's Bakery, as distinct from the 2D sections. I'll get into that in a second. Obviously, indie game development, you wear a lot of hats, so I did a lot more than just the coding, but this was predominantly my role on the project. So, what is Bonnie's Bakery? For those of you who don't know, Bonnie's Bakery was developed for the initially for the GDEX Game Jam 2022. GDEX being an indie game dev expo that happens in Ohio. I think it's in Columbus every year. And our game was it was very well received. As you can see here, we were ranked 5th, so just barely made it into the top 5, which is super exciting. It's kind of like a cute cooking game, very Diner Dash Cooking Mama inspired. And right when we get players comfortable with this, we kind of pull the rug out from under them and go full 3D survival horror. Very grungy, completely switches genre. So in the first half of the game, you play as Bonnie serving pastries and meat buns and fun snacks to these animal customers. And then in the second half of the game, you play as one of her ingredients in her creepy basement. So very spooky, a little bit Sweeney Todd-esque. And we could not have predicted when we made this in a week for a game jam that the internet was going to love it. I mean, the reception of the game was just crazy. YouTubers picked it up. We had people just leaving great comments and feedback. And all of us who worked on the game, we all looked at each other and we went, holy crap, we made something special. We made something that people like. We got to do something with this. This could be our first commercial title. And that's such an exciting place to be in as an indie game dev, because it's like a rite of passage or a coming of age, right? You're like, oh my goodness, this is the thing that finally has the potential to take what I'm doing as a hobby into potentially a career. That's like super cool. So we jumped in. We were like, oh my goodness, we gotta put this on Steam. We gotta add more to it because it's a great 1 week game jam, but it feels like a 1 week game jam in terms of content. So we polished it up. We took it to GDEX 2022. We demoed it live on the show floor, and again, people like were super excited about it. Just crazy positive reception. And we were like, okay, we need to add more to this. We don't have enough content for a full release. We're like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? Well, wouldn't it be really cool if we added like this really big mode where you play as Bonnie and you go into this like town environment and you hunt down her quote unquote ingredients. That would be awesome, right? We can do that in 3 months, easy. And you can probably guess where this is going. 6 months into our 3-month timeline, we were all staring at each other going like, what are we doing? So at this point, what we had was what we'd set out to build. We'd made our game mode, and it wasn't good. Like, it wasn't fun. Playtesters weren't enjoying it. We weren't enjoying it. And we were now at, 6 months in, and we're like, how did we get to this point? So we skipped pre-production just entirely, which bad idea. We were all amped up after the game jam, and we were like, oh, we need to move on this now. We need to go. We were all amped up, and we just started building stuff, which ironically drastically increased our development time, because here we are, we'd spent twice as much time as we meant to, and we didn't have something that was good. And we'd been working off of this very vague idea because we hadn't taken the time to flesh it out. All we asked is, wouldn't it be cool if? And we took that wouldn't it be cool if idea and just kept trying to extrapolate on it without really like diving any deeper than that. And we ended up with a really confusing game that wasn't any fun. So again, super scary place to be in. And we kept trying all these different things. What you see here is like an early tutorial that we were making, because we thought maybe our players just aren't getting it. And when they really learn the mechanics of the game, then it's going to click with them and they're going to think it's cool. That was not the case. Our playtester gameplay looked a lot like this. It was just people wandering around in our environment. This is actually me playing here. This is like an early graphics test, but this is what our playtesters looked like when they were playing. And we got comments like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Or how do I win? And we were like, oh shoot. So this is the part where, like I said, we're going, how? How did we get here? Where did we go wrong? And I remember very vividly the point where this all came to a head was we were up late, like 2-3 a.m. in a Discord call, and SoupDev asked me, what is the identity of our game? And I remember just staring at the screen, being like, oh no. None of us have an answer to that question. And that really is the question. If we had an answer to that, we wouldn't have been in this mess. And so when we asked, how do we fix this? Really what we had to do was take a step back and start asking those important questions. And number one, this is a question you should always ask at the beginning of any game development project. Like, as soon as you start, you come up with your core concept and you ask, who is this for? Because if you just start making a thing, you're not necessarily going to make a thing that anybody actually wants. And that's the position we found ourselves in. Because again, we just had this, wouldn't it be cool if? And our idea was cool to us, but when we play tested it, it evidently wasn't really cool to anyone else. Because we hadn't asked, who was our audience? What do they want? We hadn't considered what we wanted them to feel. And that's critical. I mean, that's everything. When you are developing a game, a game is really an experience. You're asking for a lot of buy-in from your audience. You're asking them to invest their senses, sight, sound, touch, if you have haptics. You're asking them to engage cognitively and emotionally with what you're building. And if you don't consider any of those angles and you're just making something based on cool art or cool mechanics, there's a good chance that it'll end up in this boat. We didn't consider that experience angle at all. Like what we were trying to make from that high level point of view. We just said, wouldn't it be cool if you could be Bonnie and do this and do that? And, we kept adding features and we kept trying to explain those features with tutorials, but we didn't have a clear experience goal, and we hadn't defined pillars for our game. I mean, we hadn't figured out what the foundations of our game are. And when I say pillars, I'm talking about like the core ideas of a game. For example, an RPG, you might say the pillars are combat and exploration, for example. And this can be something that you actually do in the game. It can be like one of the action verbs of the game, like for example, fighting. That could be a pillar of your game. But you can also be a little more emotional with your pillars. For example, if you're making a horror game, really one of your pillars is the player being scared or uncomfortable. And what was really rough about this was we had the answer right there. Because we'd released this 1-week game jam, we already had an audience, and we had feedback from them telling us explicitly what they liked about that initial version of the game. And we just like hadn't looked at that and considered it when we were developing. And this is relevant if you're ever making a game that's set in like an IP that people have already been exposed to, or like in this case, if people have already played some version of the game, or maybe you're making a sequel to a game. If you have an audience, like leverage that. Go look at feedback that they've already given you and figure out what it is that they like. And so that's what we did. That's how we decided we were going to fix Bonnie's Bakery when we were at this point where our game was just not fun. We went back and we looked at what our fans liked about the original game. And as it turns out, they really liked the story. They liked the world building. They liked the characters. They liked the ideas. They liked Bonnie. And this thing we'd been building, our game mode, we didn't have any of that because we'd been so focused on the gameplay. So we took a step back and we kind of split our mode into 2 pieces. So really, to give you a little bit of context, what we were building at this point, as horrible as this is to say, was a kidnapping simulator. Because you play as Bonnie, you go into this town, and you kidnap somebody and drag them back to your bakery. And we didn't even realize that's what we were building until the 6-month point, and we stepped back and we started asking these questions. We said, "Oh shoot, we're making a kidnapping simulator. That's horrible. Why are we doing this?" But at this point, it tied really well into the idea of Bonnie's Bakery, so we just committed to it. And this mode that we were adding here was an investigation mode. So the hunt mode that we'd been making before we go down to the town happens at nighttime. And we added a daytime level to correspond to each nighttime level. And in the daytime, you stalk your prey, and you listen in on conversations, and you figure out their route, where they're going to be and when in the next level in the nighttime. And that was a great way for Soup Dev and Sand Dev kind of masterminded the writing, and then the rest of us all gave like input on it. But it was a fantastic way for them to inject more of that like story content in, because that's really what our fans wanted. What we learned from going back and looking at feedback. And as kind of a double whammy, we noticed players started getting lost a lot less, because these investigation levels, there's no urgency to them. Once you've finished tailing your target and you've listened in on all their conversations, you're free to just explore the town, and it's kind of a safe space to let players learn the map and plan out routes. And this really was where we defined one of the pillars of our gameplay was preparation. So we have this whole mode that's dedicated to just preparing for the actual hunt for this target. And we had some of that built in, but we also put some of it on the player, like gave them the ability to really lean into that if they chose to and like prepare more on their own. And that really helped because at this point we were asking how we wanted them to feel. We wanted them to feel not confused or lost. We wanted them to feel like smart and tactical and, you know, like they're a hunter. We wanted them to feel like they were really learning their target and prepping and being ready for the nighttime. Investigation mode really helped with that. Like as soon as we added this, we started seeing more positive reception from our playtesters. But now we got to fix the night mode because we still have this really confusing mess of game design where we just put all these ideas in of what we thought would be cool without really considering the player experience of it. So now that we had this more kind of safe space aspect of the level design, we added a lot more hazards. So we added all these new NPC types. So they're like police that they're very suspicious of you. So they'll kind of interrogate the player if they see them doing anything questionable. And if they catch you doing anything, then they'll like tase you and that's game over. We had NPCs that were armed with pepper spray. We had ones who would like scream and alert the police to where you are. So you had to be a little bit more careful. And it let us tighten up a lot of the numbers of the game. For example, probably the biggest impact was the timer. Because when you are hunting a target in these nighttime levels, you go into the level and the NPC enters from one place and they're wandering around and they visit point A, point B, point C along the route that you learned in their investigation level. But beforehand, we hadn't really given the player any kind of way to know the town layout beforehand. And now that they're coming in pre-armed with all of the exploration that they did, all the prep they did from the investigation level, we were able to make that timer a lot more aggressive, where your target enters town and they kind of beeline point A, B, C, and then they leave. So you have a very narrow window to intercept them and bonk them over the head, drag them back to the bakery, and get out. And it made the gameplay just a lot more engaging to have that tighter time window. And it's something we were able to do because we added that investigation mode and let players have time to plan. We started getting playtest reports from different people and implementing their feedback. Let me just do an aside here. You hear this all the time. I'm sure it was touched on in some of the intros early on. Playtest early, playtest often. We got all of our initial feedback from friends and family, which is fine. But we did not get nearly enough playtesting from strangers, and you're gonna hear this from other projects, not just from me. Playtesting from strangers is super important, and it's scary. You always get that one person who just says this game sucks and then doesn't give you anything constructive. But that takes me back to my earlier point about knowing your audience. If somebody just says this game sucks and walks away, they're probably not part of your audience. So if you're making a first-person shooter, a visual novel fan is probably going to think the game sucks and vice versa. And so knowing how to filter that out is important, and it really helps to get practice with it. So don't shy away from playtesting with strangers. We pre-released this version of the game on itch.io before we released it on Steam, and we got so much good feedback from that. There were still a lot of problems with the game, so much better than where we were at that 6-month mark, but still, like, listening to your players, listening to what they are experiencing when they're playing the game helps you refine that experience. So probably the most critical piece of feedback we got was in our kidnapping simulator. We had this balance between like being fast but also being stealthy, because you don't want to get caught, but you also have not a lot of time to act. So you have to kind of balance being aggressive with hiding. And we got a lot of people saying, it feels like a stealth game, but there aren't enough stealth mechanics, or it's not tuned enough for stealth. We had some people play, I don't really get why there's any stealth mechanics. We can just run through this. So what we did is we ended up just making 2 different modes. We had a stealth mode and a speed mode that we put into the game. And when you play a hunt, you can calibrate it to whichever like play style you want to adopt as Bonnie. And so stealth mode, the NPCs are a little bit more forgiving about like spotting you or becoming suspicious of your actions. But if you do get caught, the consequences of that are a lot more severe. And then on the flip side, speed mode, the NPCs are a lot more reactive. But if you do set off like some, you get the police after you, it's kind of tuned to still give you a chance to like outrun them and still win the day. So we kind of split a little bit and we leaned in 2 different directions, but we ended up making more of our audience happy because again, we were keeping in mind what our players wanted out of the game and bending our development in that direction. So it's just tweaking different values based on player feedback. And I mean, now we get to the mother of all questions, right? We did all this work. Was it worth it? Did it work? Did it pay off? When we did release the game on Steam, got 95% positive user reviews, and that's still where we're sitting. So yes, it worked. We started off with a game that pretty much universally every single person we had playtest it said, this is not great. And when we launched, it was super well received. So to recap, the main points I'm trying to get at here, and I'm sure to some of you, this is just, textbook info. Probably you're already thinking like this. But if you haven't thought about game development in this way before, the very first things you should do when you have an idea, obviously don't skip pre-production. But while you're in that pre-production stage, think about your target audience. Create experience goals. I like to write these down. I keep a notebook, and anytime I start a new project, the very first page, like I'll write the title for the project, and then I'll just write experience goals. And these don't have to be anything special. These can be incredibly basic. Maybe you're making an action game and you say, I want this game to be intense and over the top and action packed and high energy. That can be it. That's as complicated as it needs to be, because those create pillars for you. That's your North Star. That experiential design is something you can refer back to anytime during development. You're going to add a new feature. Well, is that supported by my pillars? Does that tie into the experience I'm trying to create? Yes, let's do it. No, maybe not. And this is a question you should keep asking yourself all the way through development, not just at the beginning, but constantly ask yourself while you are developing the game, while you're getting playtest feedback, is the game currently supporting my experience goals? And of course, get plenty of playtesting. Never stop playtesting. Do it early, do it often. So with that, thank you for listening. If you have any questions about any of this, I'm happy to answer any and all. But otherwise, super happy to be here.
Folks in person, our mic is set up on the webcam up there. So if you have questions or comments or anything like that, I encourage you to speak loudly. Try to hit this volume. And if they have trouble hearing you, feel free to take a step closer. But if you project, you should be able to be audible. Can y'all confirm that this is audible for you, Team Melty Clown?
Yep.
Incredible.
I can hear you.
See that?
Yeah. How did you facilitate your feedback? Like, what did you use to gather it all? Like, did you open up a Discord, or did you
make a survey? And I'm curious how you went about it.
We leveraged a couple different tools. Google Forms are great. I love Google Forms. So we would send the build out to different people. We send it out to some YouTubers in advance, people who kind of adopted the Game Jam version. Like as a thank you, because we had this early build of the game and we said, hey, if you want to show this off on your channel. So if you have an in like that with YouTubers or anyone that like any kind of content creator, that's a great tool to leverage. Again, Google Forms. We sent out some versions of the build. Like I said, when we released it on itch.io, we left our comments page open on that, so people were able to leave comments on there. Maybe not the best forum for gathering feedback, but it ended up being super helpful. And then we actually brought the game to GDEX 2023 and demoed it again live at a booth. And that was very helpful because getting to be there in person with total strangers experiencing your game for the first time. It's just very informative to like watch them and watch their reactions because you get information from them even that they don't know that they're sharing. If they get to a point in the game and you see them looking really confused, that's a good sign that you can refine that and make it more apparent. I mean, unless you're trying to make them confused, again, depends on the experience you're trying to create. But be careful with trying to confuse your players.
Yeah. Could you talk a bit about how the new version works with the old version? And like is it like a spin-off? I'm curious, like, did you to some degree go back and fix up the original Jam game version? And I guess maybe my question would be, why did you immediately jump to a new game mode as opposed to just adding more to the existing things?
Right, that's a really good question. So the Jam game was very kind of a closed idea. We had multiple endings, and so when you escape the basement at the end of the original Jam game, depending on how you do it, it kind of determines the fate of the bakery because you're the first person to escape alive. So there are all these different endings where Bonnie's Bakery might get shut down, or like Bonnie comes after you, or all sorts of different things. So when we wanted to add more to the game, we kind of looked at expanding around that idea rather than fleshing out that idea more than what we already had, because again, the reception to it was very good. People liked how tight and cohesive all the writing in that core idea was. So we went back and we were trying to give more like perspective on that initial game mode. So yeah, it is the hunt mode is almost sort of a prequel. Like the events of the hunt mode happened before the dungeon mode. But yes, we did refine the game jam, not just fixing bugs, but again, implementing player feedback and kind of tying the new mode in more. So there are all kinds of narrative details and like secrets that as you learn stuff from the prequel like hunt mode and then go back into the original game modes and play them, it kind of recontextualizes some of it. So like we had a lot of players go back and replay stuff, and watching like people theory craft around the game was one of the most fun things during development, because we had a lot of narrative intricacies that we didn't really spell out explicitly anywhere in the game. And you kind of have to play all these different modes and piece it together to really get the full picture of the storyline. And it was really cool watching players actually get that, the more of this story content that we added.
How long was the original game jam?
It was 1 week. So from concept all the way to publishing it on itch.io. I didn't mention this in the talk, but that 3-month timeline, when we actually ended up shipping the game on Steam, we'd been working on the game for 1.5 years. So longest 3 months of my life.
Yeah.
Hi, so I've got a question, but first, are you currently working on another game?
Yes, we are currently working on another game. We actually, after Bonnie's Bakery, wow, I cannot speak right now. We released a visual novel called Winter Hubris, which is just came out recently. It's more horror oriented than Bonnie's Bakery. And currently we are working on a spin-off to Bonnie's Bakery set in the same universe that's more of like a dating sim, a little bit less focused on the horror aspect because again, our fan base seems to really appreciate like the character writing. So we're pursuing more of that angle in our next project.
Very cool. The question that I have is, having gone through that first experience and then taking those lessons that you've learned and applying them to the pre-production the second time around, what things have you taken away from that? What things do you feel worked or didn't work based on what you thought needed to be adjusted?
Well, for one, Winter Hubris only took 6 months to develop all the way to publishing it. So you get a much shorter development timeline when you're not developing stuff that nobody wants or that doesn't fit with your core game ideas. It also helps you while you are developing, or it helped us analyze problems a lot faster because in Bonnie's Bakery, when we had that game that was confusing and not very fun, like mechanically everything worked. So it wasn't us looking at it and saying, okay, we need to fix these bugs for this to work. It was us looking at it and going, technically this is fine. Why isn't it working as a game? So with Winter Hubris, it was a lot easier to identify problems like that because we had set out experience goals from the outset. Um, there were points where we would play it and we'd go, okay, this mechanic is not tying in well with our core experience. How can we tweak this one way or another so that it actually fits with the theme of the game and the feelings that we want the players to have here?
So your art style is so cute and charming. Did you ever like consider not doing cannibalism and like kidnapping?
The cannibalism was actually part of the initial pitch, unfortunately. It was funny. So the way I got roped into this, I was actually one of the last people to get added to the team initially. The pitch got drafted up. I believe it was Sandev who came up with the original pitch, and everyone else on the team got pulled in to do like the really cute art and stuff for the 2D part of the game, and then they said, "Hey, we need somebody to code the creepy part in the basement." And so they contacted me, and I like got back from working on something one day, and I had like 99 plus private messages on Discord. I was like, shoot, what is this? But I read through. I remember saying, I have no idea what this is, but I'm in. And then I scrolled back 99 messages, and I looked at the initial pitch, and I was like, oh shoot, what did I just sign up for? This is freaking messed up. But it was a lot of fun to develop because getting to see through Bonnie's eyes almost kind of softens the darker themes of the game a little bit because Bonnie is just completely insane. And that's another one of those pillars we leaned on when we were developing the fresh ingredients expansion with the hunt mode and everything was because you are playing as Bonnie while you're committing all these terrible acts. We got to insert a lot of like psychedelic visuals and just like weird Easter eggs where when you see it, you kind of question like, am I sane right now? Like I'm not playing somebody who's all there. And then that does tie into again the experience of it because Bonnie is very unhinged, and to her, it is a game. Like the things that she's doing, all of the crimes she's committing, are a game to her. So like let us we put in all these like wacky sound effects and it seems very lighthearted when you're playing it, but there are points of the game like the dungeon where we kind of peel back that veil a little bit, and that's the real horror of the game is Like when you're playing those Bonnie sequences, like, oh, this game is so fun and cute, and then you get like a glimpse behind that, and it's like, oh man, this is really dark.
I have a question. Did you ever market it like a horror game, or was it always just the light part of it?
Mostly the light part of it, because the dungeon part is such a twist. Um, so we hint at it in the marketing, but yeah, most of it is like, oh, Bonnie, she cooks pastries, it's so cute. And then we kind of wait until players are comfortable cooking, and then we pull the rug out from under them and go, psych, it's a horror game.
Has anybody bought it thinking it was going to be a cooking game and then returned it because it was a horror game?
Yes, actually, the couple refunds that we did have on Steam, that's the reason. And we do put disclaimers on the page that the game contains like gore. But you know, sometimes you get somebody who just looks at the screenshots and goes, "Oh, this game looks cute," and they buy it. So kind of a double-edged sword marketing tactic there.
So it's interesting as you were going through your talk. I recognized every single problem you had and had actually had them myself on like my first large creative project, and also I, been involved in like various critique groups and writing communities where I've seen the same problems that you and I went through come up again. So I have to ask, was this your first big project that you ever worked on?
It was definitely the biggest project we'd worked on. I just graduated when I made this. Like literally, I think the game jam happened in like the last week of my last semester at college. So everything I'd done up to this point was like game jams and like school projects. And I'd done some personal work. I spent 2 months making like a roguelike, not a roguelike, and like arena-based first-person shooter just for fun. But that was probably the biggest thing I'd made prior to this. So fresh out of university, hadn't done anything quite at this scale. Yeah, it's perfect recipe for a lot of rookie mistakes.
I think this is probably just a problem that like everybody dealing with larger projects deals with at some point, which is I have a cool idea, but I don't understand actually what's cool about this thing specifically.
Right. Or again, like the audience aspect of it.
I have a question. Sort of as you were aiming to expand your game and like elevate it to reach a broader audience, I'm curious what some of your approaches were for outreach and for finding and fostering that sort of community of fans of your game and what your experiences with that were like.
Yeah. So again, this is where it really helped that kind of initially the game had taken off on its own for that GDEX 2022 game jam, and this is where I can't recommend enough participating in very high visibility game jams like that. We also kind of hit a trend right when it was really big of horror games that have like that cute facade. So having that initial traction really gave us an in with a lot of those communities, especially the YouTubers were integral in the success of the game because like I mentioned earlier, we were able to send like preview builds to them and we were able to interact with them on their social medias, and they did a lot of the work for us almost of like spreading the game and like getting word of mouth out there. But then also attending conventions and having a physical presence, I think made a big difference.
One small question, because I was looking at the Steam page a bit. I'm curious why you guys picked $3.99 as the price. There's a lot in the game.
There is, because again, we were planning for it to only take 3 months to develop. And we foolishly announced the price very early before we knew it was going to take us a year and a half to make. And rather than go back on that, we figured we'd just honor our word and release the game for $3.99. So, moral of the story there is don't announce your price early and don't imagine that the game is going to be easy to make.
Follow-up question then, if you're comfortable answering this, what do you think the actual value of the game would be if you got to decide without having to honor the $3.99?
I think we easily could have sold it for $10 to $20.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Like
Yeah,
easily.
it felt like that, but
So I think you got a lot of coverage of the Jam game from YouTubers and stuff. Did you find that when it actually came time to sell, was it a bit different? So I remember I had a similar situation with a Game Jam game, got a bunch of YouTube coverage. But then when it came to the Steam version, we reached out to some YouTubers, people who played it, and we got a little bit. We got decent views, but then as far as the actual source of purchases, it was like 99% like Steam algorithm. It was maybe like one of the YouTube videos was helpful in getting the new and trending. So maybe that was vital, but like it seemed like as far as actual sales, it was almost all the Steam algorithm at some point. Did you have a similar experience, or did you find that the YouTube stuff really was the main driver of interest?
It definitely was the YouTube stuff for us. Actually, the Steam algorithm was not particularly kind to Bonnie's Bakery. We kind of got shuffled into the dark corners of Steam almost immediately. So again, the YouTubers really like kept us alive, especially in the early days. And we did notice like anytime one of the YouTubers who we had like a bigger audience and had covered our game before would put out like a new video on the updated build, we would almost always see like a spike in sales corresponding to that.
If you don't mind me asking, what did your wish list prior to launch go? Because you said it was in that announcement to sale space for a little bit.
I would say when we put it on Steam initially, there wasn't a lot of visibility on it because our core audience had been on itch.io, so that's where the game jam happened. Probably the biggest driver of wish lists for us was having that booth at GDEX 2023, because again, having the physical presence there and not just connecting with players but also other game developers really like spread the visibility of the Steam launch of the game. And then of course we put out like trailers, and something else that we did was again to keep leveraging the YouTubers because we knew they were a really big asset. When we initially put it on itch and then when we put it on Steam, we did put a small content update. So when it came out on Steam, we also pushed that update to itch, but it was like the Steam launch of the game was also like a content update. So all of those content creators who we had involved in the game went back and like did more coverage on it.
Okay, so you've had, I think probably like what, 2 years of additional experience with game development since developing the Fresh Ingredients expansion. What's the most important thing you've learned during that time after developing the Fresh Ingredients expansion?
After Fresh Ingredients. That's a tricky one. So, personally, after Ingredients, I've actually picked up a job as a manager at an Amazon delivery station. So I've had a lot less time to work on game development. So the stuff that I've been doing, I've kind of been really focusing on the stuff that I'm good at. And Soup Dev might have a better answer for this because SoupDev did a lot of the SoupDev and SandDev were kind of the masterminds behind Bonnie's Bakery, and again, I kind of jumped in and helped a lot with the design work when we realized that we had like put ourselves in a bad place. But yeah, recently, I'd say in the 2 years since Fresh Ingredients, I've been kind of going back to that support role and really like helping them define their core ideas again. Because again, I just haven't had a lot of time. SoupDev, it looks like it's typing an answer out for me.
So while we're waiting on that, if you don't mind, so you mentioned you're working a job or were working a job. Did your team at any point consider going to look for external funding, or has this always just been a matter of you're funding this with your day jobs?
Yeah, we're mostly funding it with our day jobs. We have, it's an ongoing discussion. We've been talking about like publishers and investors, and it's not something that we've made any moves on yet. But like I said, it's something we're constantly talking about.
Okay, so it's not just that it took a year and a half of solid game development. It was also that year and a half was on the side of other stuff.
Correct. But we were planning it to be 3 months on the side. So that's something we factored in, and we just, one, massively underestimated the scope of what we were building, but also we're developing without a clear sense of direction.
Do you have any sort of guesstimate on like roughly how much time was put in terms of like, vague hours per week of time dedicated? Because I know that can massively affect things.
Oh my goodness, I have no idea. So so my day job I actually picked up after this was a point where I was like living with family. So Bonnie's Bakery for that year and a half, for me at least, was like an all day, every day kind of thing. Very like wake up, go back to the development grind, and then get like 5 hours of sleep and then go back and do it again. So for me at least, uncountable hours.
How big is the
There were 7 of us initially that did the game jam, and then when we formed the studio properly, we brought on an 8th person to do a lot of like our marketing stuff for us. So eight total, but like 7 in terms of like file contribution to the game, I guess. Oh, here we go. SoupDev has an answer all typed up. SoupDev says, "Hello. One thing I learned a lot from the Fresh Ingredients release was how to plan out the newest releases and keep in touch with our audience. Marketing is very important, and while we were developing these new things, we disconnected with our audience a bit. Since we were taking a lot of time with implementation, we stopped the marketing front for a while, and I feel like we really hurt our visibility for a bit. Once we started coming back and keeping our audience informed, giving them updates and whatnot, we started seeing growth again on our channel."
Thanks, SoupDev.
Thanks, Dev.
Anybody else got anything?
Just a small question. Will Bonnie make an appearance in your dating sim?
Stay tuned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You guys.
Alrighty. Thank you once again from myself. it's been a pleasure having y'all here. Super excited for this project and any future endeavors you guys are working on. It's been a blast, and I mean, if you're ever interested in getting some playtesting, we have an event built just for it.
One last question. Are you guys in Columbus?
No, we're not. A lot of us are kind of in the Northeast Ohio area.
Word. So it sounds like if some of our cohort ends up at GDEX this coming year, we might cross paths.
We might. There's a very real possibility.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. We've got you guys' website in our game dev meeting channel, meltyclownstudio.com. If anybody is interested in following up with any of the other projects, check it out. And Trent and I have certified the elections. So we got 4 new board members. Thank you for the drum roll. Got Beth, Mark, Joanna, and Eric. Congratulations. Congratulations, and thank you everybody for participating, whether as a voter or as a candidate. Your time and energy is very much appreciated. And if you were not elected as a board member and you would still be interested in continuing your endeavors as a volunteer, please do keep in touch. Your ideas are still very important and valuable and are things that we would love to see to help grow and benefit this community.
Yeah, let's get that jam idea that Elle has going. Let's get that audio thing that Rob has going.
Yeah.
Let's make those 2 things a priority for the new board as well.
Absolutely.
What a bunch of good candidates.
Yeah, really. Tough choices. There are no bad choices. Yeah. Congratulations. All right. Huh? Max. Yeah. Cool. Oh?
They get so much applause today. We've all done such a good job. I think we need to just give it a
Yeah. Good job, your palms are raw and bloody right by now. Let's wrap this all up and continue the interview. Once again, thank you so much to our wonderful speakers of the night and to anybody who's joined in on the stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for sharing your ideas. And we'll see you next time.